Usually I tidy up before I pack up. The other day, as you could probably tell from the end of that last video, it was pretty well done for, so I hadn't in that case. So now we go up here to do a bit of cleaning up and find everything's still out. But look, what I also got, and I've chucked it here too though, is a strong bar and a 32mm socket. So let's check and see if that socket actually fits the crankshaft bolt. Perfect size. Now what we're going to do is clean up all of this. So we're going to go and get ourselves a razor blade and a wire brush. So we're going to find in here all of that stuff that we need to start building back better and better. This is a hose, and these Toyota parts are things like the filters and the belts. So for now we don't need those. What we do need is not those, they're paint. And that's a filter. I think it's this stuff in here. So if we bring this down, now I can go on the ground. This is a polish. I have no idea why the hell this is in here. I'll put it over there and put it in the shed. But this, I think, is the stuff that we need to start rebuilding, including the water pump. And the water pump gasket. Yeah, so we've got other things in here like the belt kit, thermostat, which I think we've already replaced. Yeah, that's the old one. So the thermostat's been replaced. That's the old one. Might as well stay in there for now. But let's put that pump on, hey? Now what we do need is that gasket stuff, and I just don't know where it is that we put that. There it is. Right here. And these parts here are all of the bolts and nuts and things that came off when we were dismantling it at the start. So they can stay there for now. Let's put a very thin coating of that gasket stuff on here, put it on, put a very thin coat on the outside. We've already started on the wrong side. So that's the side we want to put it on, this one. There are generally two schools of thought when it comes to gasket cements and things. This is a non-hardening, so I'm hoping that whoever needs to take it off next time, whether that's me or somebody else, it hasn't hardened too much. It's one of those things that every little bit of insurance that you can take for sealing something is good insurance in my view. And there we go. This is where it comes in handy when we've labelled everything. Now, remember what I said, that some of these are different lengths, with these longer ones obviously going to go in these holes here. And here. I don't know whether you heard that ominous rattle as a nut fell off, but we found it. We just need to put this on and pull that out of the way, and that should pop on. So we can come back and torque those. We do have the new studs for that water pump flange, so let's go and find that. So what we'll do is we'll go and find out what torque settings there are for that, and then we might start reassembling some of this, including maybe throwing on the air conditioner. It's supposed to be, well, it varies slightly, I think, depending on the length of the bolt, but I'm just going to do them all the same. It's not going to make that much difference because it's not a lot. 18 foot-pounds. And remember I showed you this, how you crank that through to the foot-pounds. So in this case there's not an 18 but a 10, then a 20. So I crank it through to 20 on the 0 and then just come back to on that. So that should make it 18. So it looks as if we've done it all right with the ichrometer. Once again, we've wisely kept the bolts separate in a bag. That makes it much easier for us. And this goes on like so. What we're going to do now is clean up this plate that goes in here and see why we have more than one seal. So we haven't quite finished, but I've been summoned away. Just 1 second, I'll shut the bonnet on this. That's better. Today, Emily's gone in for a dressing change after her op, and so I'm just going to go and get showered and go and pick her up. We'll come back to that tomorrow. It's been much longer than I expected to get back to this due to all sorts of reasons, and I suppose you're accustomed to hearing that anyway. But let's have a look and see if we can put at least part of this on, hey? So remember last time we put the water pump on? Today, how about we put on the this here, then we can put the cam gear back on, fasten the rocker cover back down, and attach a couple of things. Let's see how we go. The one thing we will do is we're going to get some grease, and we'll put some grease in this, then we'll flip her over and we'll put some sealant through here. Just before we go ahead and put this on, let's just check all of these nuts are tight. And I think they're all from memory 12 mil. Whoever made these things made them impossible to get on. I do notice some people put them on and have no trouble at all, but I can never get the damn things to go all the way on. That's good enough. So let's squirt a little of this on. So we've got the bolts for it. So I don't know what the torque setting is, but let's just guess at something and make them all the same. I think about, say, 18 foot-pounds is probably pretty good, because it's really only holding that firm against there. Let's go and get the torque wrench. And because it's such a thin piece of aluminium, we'll just do it very gently and very evenly. There we go. We have that right here. Not forgetting the Woodruff key, which is in here as well. So remember that little key? It goes in there. And this goes on, remembering that that was at 12 o'clock. And you see that that's actually beveled, if that's the correct term for it, that way. So this has to go on like so, bearing in mind that we've got to make sure that we don't knock the woodruff key out as we put it on. And we didn't. So remember, that's 19. And remember, as we do this up, we need to hold the cam in place when we torque it. So now we'll do it up. Then we'll get the torque setting. And do it all the way up, taking that off, so that we can hold the camshaft in place. It's 72 foot-pounds for that bolt there, and it's a 19 mil. Now it doesn't matter if this moves a little, this cam moves a little, because it's not going to move very much, and it's certainly not going to do any damage. We can always crank it back a little, but we want to try, if it's at all possible, to hold this in one place while cranking this in the opposite direction. That's it. Now it's barely moved, but let's crank it back a fraction so we can line it back up. Just a fraction too far. There we go. So we'll check that these two marks are still perfectly lined up, there and there. And they are. Now we can put the tappet cover back on. Then we can slip on the timing belt. So we've had a couple of blunders, and one of them, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, is that when I went out yesterday, it was pretty rainy, and I put the lights on, and when I got home I forgot to turn off the headlights, which meant that when I went back out this morning to start the car, well, it had a flat battery. So we jumped it, but I'm not sure if that drive, we've just had a bit of a drive, was enough to charge it up, so I'm going to put it on the charger. But let's go and get the voltmeter first and we'll check the voltage. 13.42, but that might be because there's still a bit of excitement going on the battery, so we'll put the charger on overnight and get it back up to normal. The battery's not that old, but I'm sure we didn't do it any favours by running it flat. 13.9, and we'll just leave that overnight, and that'll bring it back up to normal. Now, I mentioned a couple of blunders. One was that battery that has gone flat due to me leaving the lights on. And the second was that when we were finishing off what we've done so far to the Troopy, we lost the audio, and I just didn't notice, you know, and went on and I recorded the last little bit of that with no audio. So let me just narrate that for you. But in essence, really what we've done is put the timing belt on, put on the tensioner, put the cover back on. We've put on that air inlet pipe that goes across there, fastened down the rocker cover, also put on the idler for the air conditioning compressor. But let's just walk through that stuff, and then we'll get that uploaded for you. First of all, it's important to note that the cam gear rotates clockwise, and the belt may or may not have a direction of travel on it. This particular one did, and so of course we have it travelling from the cam gear towards the lower gear, because that's the one that's going to pull it taut. I fumbled about with the idler pulley a fair bit, so you can decide whether you want to put it on first or second. I think the workshop manual suggests putting it on first, but I did find it a bit difficult, so I took it off and then refitted it after I'd fitted the belt. And then we came to the spring, which turned out to be a heck of a job, as you can probably imagine. Fortunately, when we got this on though, I used the Action cam, and it had some audio. We got the belt on. Those timing marks are still lined up here and here. The belt's tight on this side. We've got this on loosely, and what we're going to do is get this spring onto there. So we're going to have to use some good old-fashioned was it Archimedes? Give me a long enough lever and I can shift the world. Leverage to get it on. We got it on. It's not easy. It took several attempts, but persistence paid off. You've just got to really get that screwdriver in it and lever it until it pops back onto there. Now we can tighten these two up. The camshaft turns twice for every single rotation of the crankshaft, and that means that every valve opens and we get to see whether any of the valves tap any of the pistons on the top as we turn it, which would indicate that we have the cam belt timing wrong. And we don't just leave it to chance and try and start the engine, because that can cause a lot of damage. But if we do it gently, we turn the crankshaft once, and then every valve will open. So that's 2 full turns, and both those marks are lining up again, here and back here, as we would like. So we can throw the cam belt cover on and throw in those bolts. Next, the clips, remembering not to let them fly away, followed by replacing the bolts that hold the power steering pump reservoir in place, and then the rocker cover bolts go in. That's followed by the air pipe and then the tensioner pulley for the air conditioner. So we finished up the we finished up for the Troopy for today. We got the idler pulley on, we got that air intake pipe on, we got the rocker cover bolted down, we got the back of the timing belt plate on, we got the timing cover on, we tested it by spinning it a couple of times. We put a bunch of stuff together, and next all we've got to do is a few ancillary items and we're pretty well done. So we'll take a break for now, and we'll get this uploaded, and then we'll finish off next time I see you and we can take it for a test drive. Thanks for watching.